Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar of the year. We are really happy to have Kristin Gutierrez here with us. She accepted our invitation and we are really happy about it. And it's a perfect way to start the new year. So I'll just introduce some information and then I'll pass to Kristin to present her webinar. Just let me share this just a minute. So, welcome again to our webinar from BLISS. We are presenting now today Kristin Gutierrez, and the presentation is in Portuguese, but I will speak. We are the first association to represent the service linguist companies. So translation, localization, interpretation, subtitling, everything. We represent all these companies here in Brazil. We want to represent the Brazilian market of the linguistics. So if you're not a member, please talk to us. Our purpose is to spread the word about the Brazilian companies regarding translation and localization, interpretation, provide information about technology to our members, connect different professionals of linguistic services, and of course talk and try to in some way help the universities to bridge the gap regarding technology and what is needed in the market. This is this is our associate companies. This is our partners. We have partnership with different foreign associations and companies in the linguistic services. This is our social media. Feel free to follow us, connect with us, talk with us. And thank you for coming. We're storming together. Next webinar, just to give you a hint, will be February 29th with the Magic Beans Agency, Robert Martin, Laura Casanelas, and Rita Gonçalves. We're talking about the trends for this year, what is in the crystal ball, and how to assure your LSP success. So after this webinar, we will provide the link for the registration for the next webinar. Join us. For today, I'm really happy to introduce Kristin. She'll talk about leadership leverage, personal branding secrets for team success. Two-time award-winning, best-selling author of Be a Better Sales Leader and international keynote speaker, Kristin Gutierrez is on a mission to empower leaders. Kristin is dedicated to helping leaders get out of their way, create impact, increase outcomes, and lead beyond their roles. So, Kristin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Thank you so much for saying hello in the chat. Thank you so much for BLISS for having me here today. Okay. And this is the right view. Yes? Thumbs up. Okay, great. So I am very grateful to be here today. If you've been to a masterclass of mine in the past, you'll know that I do like it to be a little more interactive. I can see the chat while I am presenting. So maybe at times I will ask you to say okay in the chat. Maybe I'll ask you questions and I can absolutely also respond to the questions in the chat. So please continue to put your LinkedIn URL in the chat and connect with everybody, because we are here. We might as well make the most of the next 40 minutes. I am here to talk about a very important topic personal branding, and I will hopefully in a very simplistic way explain my two-pronged approach to personal branding and why it matters what you do on the inside of your company, how you act, and then it matters, if your company allows, what you do externally, i.e. giving your time, dedicating time to be in webinars or podcasts. So there is a lot to cover, and I'm very excited to go over that. Listen, my slide decks are very, very, very sophisticated. So if it's okay with you, this is pretty much the most sophisticated image I have. Stick figures. We'll talk about why it matters. We'll talk about what it is, and then we'll talk about how to get started. But let me just tell you a little bit about me. So like they said in the introduction, of course, Paulo said in the introduction, I am an international keynote speaker. Who here is also going to the Juntos event, right? Juntos in the chat. If you are going to be in Lima, I will be on stage giving the keynote and working on the details for that now. I'm very excited and very grateful. And Raphael, again, thank you so much for having me here today, and the whole BLISS organization. I have won a couple awards, and that is because I can teach you how to win awards too. Like, it's kind of like the whole culmination of the importance of a webinar like this, right? And on personal branding. So if you're a CEO, write CEO in the chat. If you are a leader, write leader in the chat. And if you are an individual contributor, write contributor or IC in the chat. And that way I know who I'm talking to. Leader, leader, leader. I love it. Leader, IC, love it. Good to see you here. Okay. So whether you're a contributor or a leader, you too can go out there and win awards. It's knowing that these awards exist and that often we have to self-nominate ourselves. So I won an award for an outcomes-based methodology that I use to drive innovation with clients. And I have presented that framework at ALC, at their Amplify event. If you've ever been there, that's a great event that happens for sales professionals and project management once a year. And I won an award for the success that my individual business has had. And I've been in our industry for 20 years. I think that's what's very important here. Let's raffle off a book. Who would love a copy of Be a Better Sales Leader? Write book in the chat if that's something that you're interested in, and whether I will see you in Lima, Peru, or whether I need to drop this in the snail mail, put it in the mailbox, I will. So if you're interested in a book, just stay tuned until the very end, and let's make this session as interactive as possible. Okay. So here is my two-prong approach to personal branding, and kind of the meat of what I want to share today, which is why I'm starting with it, to give us kind of a foundation for understanding what I meant. And as a leader, your job is to coach and teach your team. This is why it's secrets for team success. Okay. So take this back to your teams, screenshot it. You'll get the recording. I can also send it to you internally. And this means like within your company. Personal branding is all about executive presence, right? How you treat others, how you show up for meetings prepared, how the art of saying no, right? Being able to ask for help, looking for mentors, being able to receive feedback constructively, ask for feedback, and also give feedback. I have several slides to give you lots of real life examples of how to step into your personal brand internally. But I wanted to make sure that I established this as a foundation, that internally companies speak on personal branding as it relates to executive presence. So when I say that this is a topic that is very current, that's why I wanted to present it to the BLISS Association, because I feel that every LSP is going to benefit from learning these strategies. So if you have a team and do an assessment of where your current team members are they comfortable presenting to your CEO? Or do they typically just say yes, yes, yes to a lot of things without actually thinking through what their opinion is as it relates to driving an idea forward or organizing a meeting, for example. So your job as a leader is to analyze your team members and to help them increase their executive presence. At the same time, you as the leader, or you as the individual contributor, if you're here, right, you should do a self-analysis on where am I weaker, where could I use some improvement, and then dive into these strategies later. And we'll get into this. But externally, what personal branding is essentially is thought leadership. Okay, so internally, executive presence, externally, thought leadership. Everybody here, drop in the chat the number of years you've been in the industry. So I'll go first, 20, but maybe it's 1, maybe it's 5, 13, Lucretia, 2, 31. I love it. Look at all of these years experience that we bring to the table. Everybody, even Brenda, who says 2, right? And not to pick on Brenda, I happen to know Brenda, so I know it's okay. But even if it's 2, you have thought leadership, right? So if it's 10, if it's 12, it's 30, 17, you have experience. And we're going to talk a lot about that too, because creating your personal brand externally to your company, building your thought leadership, participating in podcasts, webinars like this, speaking on stage at conferences like Juntos, writing articles, doing unique things on LinkedIn. This all creates your personal brand externally. Now, I know specifically from working on this with one of those companies I just mentioned, that not all companies support this idea of being an external thought leader, right? Hopefully companies come around and they see the benefit of this moving into future years. But I want to say you don't need both executive presence and thought leadership to thrive in your role and beyond. If it has to be one or the other, work on the internal executive presence first, because that will get you far. Let me move on and start to share examples. So again, the X factor, right? We're going to dive now into strategies to increasing your internal personal brand. And I wanted to root it in what I mean by executive presence. It means the combination of your behaviors, your attitude, really like your attitude, like how you dress, how you show up, like, are you a pleasant person, and your skills that allows leaders to command respect, inspire, and motivate their teams. We help our team members and direct reports climb the ladder. We have to give them the skills and the tools necessary to thrive in their job. When you read Be a Better Sales Leader, you'll see that in the introduction, or in the first couple of chapters, I say, nobody handed me a playbook when I got promoted at 23, 4 years old to manage global inside sales at SDL. So I, now known as RWS, but I started in my career at SDL in 2005 as an individual contributor, as an experiment. They brought me in as an experiment. Can we add a junior inside salesperson? Now we kind of call these people BDRs or SDRs, but can we bring somebody in to pound the pavement, hit the phone, send a bunch of emails, and support our reps? That person was me. And within a year, I got promoted to managing global inside sales. And I was flying to the UK all the time from Chicago, where I used to live. And my parents were like, "What do you do?" And I was managing a team of older gentlemen who we had acquired through the Trados acquisition. I mean, because this is 2005, right? So SDL had just acquired Trados, and then they hired me. And then when I got promoted, I was managing people like that. And then we acquired a company, if you remember, called Idiom. So I was managing those guys and they were in Boston, right? And so nobody said, here's a playbook, here's how you have a meeting with the CEO. So Mark Lancaster, when I was in the UK, he would set meetings with me and my boss, Clive Thomas, to come in and talk about the KPIs, the key performance indicators of the inside sales team. So I had to learn very fast how to have the right behaviors, how to prepare a deck that was going to resonate with the audience in which I was speaking to. If you report to me in the past or today, you'll know that one of the strategies I learned working for Anna Schlegel at NetApp. Okay, so who knows the Anna Schlegel? You can write Anna in the chat. She co-founded Women in Localization with a couple other women. And a couple years ago, I took a contract job at NetApp because I wanted to work on the client side. Yes, Anna is amazing. Yes. And it just so happened, by being involved in Women in Localization, by being involved in an association like BLISS, I found out that NetApp was hiring, their communications manager had left and they were hiring a new one. And so I raised my hand, I applied, and I got the job. And that's amazing. I left my salary. This is before I had kids. And I worked a contract gig for NetApp so that I could be in the globalization team, surrounded by Anna Schlegel, Edith Bendermacher, Bridget O'Brien. And these names might not mean anything to you, but as a sales rep in our industry, having historically always called on tech companies, those names meant something to me, right? So next week, Salesforce is bringing me in to talk to their localization team about failing forward. And also the head of that department is going to be there. And I said to the contact bringing me in, is Teresa going to be there? And she said, yes. I said, oh, she's so intimidating to me. And she said, yeah, she used to be to me too. But, you know, obviously there's nothing to be scared of. You want to put yourself in positions where you're intimidated by other people in the room, like Mark Lancaster at SDL, because that's when we grow. And that's why this executive presence is so important. So to conclude, I worked at NetApp, and Anna would be in meetings with her directors, senior, smart, strategic leaders, people who managing like the whole documentation team, right? The guy, I just won't say his name, but like the guy was there, right? So she had leaders in the room, maybe like 7 or 8 people, and she would pause in the middle of a meeting and say, no, let's fix this problem right now. So often tell me if this is you, like give me some emojis or whatever. We sit in a meeting and then we leave that meeting and we have to go do a bunch of work, right? Say work in the chat. If you're the type of person who you're in a meeting and then you get assigned a bunch of work and then you have to leave that meeting to go do the work, but actually you have to go to another meeting. And so what you're doing is you're going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, gathering a bunch of work to do, and then you have to go find time to do it, right? Paulo, work a lot between the meetings. Yes. What Anna was notorious for doing was pausing in the meeting that we were in and said, do it now. Just do it now. And it's not without being extremely awkward. Like, I'm telling you this because I want you to frame it up. There are senior leaders in this meeting and she's saying, no, respectfully pause and do it now. And sometimes that meant typing an email. Sometimes that meant like brainstorming the idea that we had that we were going to push people away to go have more meetings with, because her executive presence was so tuned in, it was so dialed in that we might as well get the things done in this moment because we're here together. And I, Anna Schlegel, I have a calendar that's so chaotic and so busy. She's often double, triple booked throughout her day. And she has an admin dedicated specifically to managing her calendar. So she doesn't have time to work between meetings, right? She finds time before work, after work. She obviously gets her job done. But what she learned and what she taught me and that I teach others is when the thing can be done now, do it now. So say, do it now in the chat. If you can start committing to taking some of these lessons learned and carrying them forward. All right. I love this stuff so much, you guys. Do it now. Thank you, guys. Okay, so I have a couple slides to talk about, in addition to everything I just shared, how to improve our executive presence. Now that we know what executive presence is, now that we're going to commit to do things now, let's look at these 8 ideas. I got 4 on this slide, 4 on the next slide. And then I've got some thought leadership ideas. And then, like always, there's so much content, so much goodness. You can't pack it all in, but we'll do the best we can. Give me some emojis or thumbs up or hearts if this is all resonating with you so far. Awesome. Oops, sorry. Okay. So confidence, communication, feedback, resilience, man, grit, Grit, grit and resilience. Who follows me on social media or Instagram? Bliss is like extremely active on Instagram. Raphael, yes, I love it. I know that Raphael, put your Instagram for Bliss in, it's probably Bliss, but put it in the chat so that we can all follow, because Bliss is like a very active Instagram. Listen, my family lives in another state from me in the US, so they don't get to see my 5-year-old and 3-year-old. And so I've just come into this place of sharing stories kind of every day. And, you know, depending on the season I'm in, depends on what I share. But my whole family has been extremely sick for like a week. It has been torture. Sick. I know Pat was sick. Like, everybody has been extremely sick lately. I don't know what that was. I still have it, so I'm sorry for the sniffling, but resilience is where I was going with that. Bouncing back, showing up here today, making sure that no matter what, I was prepared for today, and that even if I sounded nasally or had like such a congested nose from sleeping last night, that I was still able to show up. Now, Lucrecia, I am sorry for last Friday, of course, but things happen and life is real, right? But like resilience, your ability to bounce back That is so important for executive presence, because people will tell you no all the time. Or Anna Schlegel will stare you in the face in a meeting in front of your peers and tell you to do it now. And she is not saying it, well, she's not being mean. She's not being mean, but it doesn't feel good when it's you being directed across with 7 of your peers right there. And she's like, just do it now. It feels awkward. You have to be able to bounce back from that. You have to be resilient. You then could go to Anna after the meeting and say, how do I get better? Help me get better. You could ask for feedback. You should tell me in the chat feedback if you are willing to go to 3 people you work with today and ask them, how can I do my job better? How can I help you? How can I help us? Do you have cross-functional colleagues that you work with? Naturally, we all do, right? Even if it's HR or finance, or obviously in operations, your sales counterparts, or maybe you have no sales team, but your boss, right? Or your leader, or your direct reports, or your peers. Ask them, how can I be better? How can I work with you better? It doesn't have to be all about you. It could be like, how can I serve you better? How can I make our relationship better? Because I'm new at Language Network, I'm a vice president of sales and marketing at Language Network now for the past like 6 weeks. And that means I'm relearning, building relationships with all of my peers. And I had a meeting yesterday in preparation for a meeting tomorrow, in which we're building a bridge between my team and their team, right? And so it's very important, even when you're not new, that you just pause every quarter, every half of a year, or right now it's the beginning of the year, and say, how can I work with you better this year? So feedback in the chat, right? Feedback in the chat. If you are willing to go to 3 people today and ask for feedback, because it will set you up for success, and it will set them up for success. And the art of being able to receive feedback, yeah, you're not always going to like what you have to hear, like with Anna, right? Proactive listening, like practice active listening. Have you heard the saying, the loudest person in the room is often the weakest, right? Focus so intently on what the person is saying, maybe when they're giving you feedback, or just in general when you're having meetings with your peers, that you're taking notes, and that you're not so worried about what you're going to say next, but you're more worried about how you can interact with them in a very meaningful way, how you can ask deep questions to really get to know the other person, even if you know them for 20 years, right? Let's say you've worked with somebody in this chat, I just don't remember the name. They've been in the industry 31 years. So maybe you've worked with somebody for 31 years, but practicing active listening with your peers sets us up for success when we're interacting with clients, right? Maybe those clients are other language service providers. Maybe those clients are direct buyers, but nobody wants to talk to a salesperson, whether you're the president of a company or a project manager who's selling, that is me. Everybody wants to know what's in it for them. And humans respond better when they get to talk about themselves. So practice active listening by asking specific questions about what the other person is saying, rather than trying to force your own agenda when they're done talking. Does that make sense? I'm happy to go into any of these topics further. I'm going to move to the next slide, but if there's something that you want me to go over, let me know. Okay. We all work from home now, right? Well, I don't know. We don't all work from home. Look at Paolo. He's in the office. Yay. I love that. It's so important. Our appearance is so important. That does not mean if you're a female, you're wearing a ton of makeup, right? It doesn't have to mean that, but like, are you smiling? Are you in a good mood today? Right? Do you have stains all over your clothes? Dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. Lucky for us, a lot of CEOs in Silicon Valley wear t-shirts and blue jeans. So dressing for that next job doesn't always mean wearing a business suit, for example, right? But know where you are, what's in your, if you're on camera, if Paolo's in the office, but he's still on a camera right now, right? So like, what does this appearance look like? And I'm not talking about his background or my background or having your company's background, right? Like BLISS, the BLISS background, for example. I'm just talking about like, are you showing up? Are you presenting yourself in a way that is consistent with being a vice president of sales or consistent with being an entrepreneur, right? I started getting coaching. So I believe a lot in coaching. I also happen to sell coaching, but like I sell it because I believe in it and I buy it for myself. And the coach I started working with recently, for the first time ever, not in a business sense, although ironically helping me with business, is on emotional sobriety. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to put her book title here. You could check it out. The You You've Never Met. Check it out on Amazon. So she does emotional. Oh, thanks for that, BLISS team. Emotional sobriety, in case you didn't hear me. And that's in line with emotional intelligence, because executives, having an executive presence as a leader, you have to be able to manage your emotions, and you need to be able to recognize your emotions and the influence they have on other people. Okay. So obviously, I love executive presence, but I don't know if maybe I love more thought leadership. So there's only this slide, and then like how to get started slide. So I think we're doing really good on timing, and we can go in. Actually, this slide, when I was prepping, it was like 3 slides. So there is so much content I could provide on thought leadership. And there's a lot on this slide, right? So I want to ask you, because I do have people come to me to say, what is my expertise? What do I focus on? So that depends on everything that makes you you. You heard on LinkedIn, maybe end of last year, that the word of the year was authentic, right? Authentic in the chat if you saw that article. It's all about like, what makes me is me, right? And I learned as an entrepreneur, I learned how to lean in to me, because as a salesperson for 20 years in the language industry, I'm a dime a dozen, if you know that saying. I'm like, there's hundreds of me, there's thousands of me, right? But then you start to stack your experience. And I spent 10 years at the 3 largest language service providers at the time in our industry: Lionbridge, now RWS, then SDL, and TransPerfect. So the first 3 years of my career were in, sorry, my computer over here is like doing something. We're in those, but what's your niche? So like I have somebody in one of my communities who is an ASL interpreter by trade. She interprets American Sign Language, and she got a sales job at a language services company. So her niche is ASL. Where do you work? What is your LSP representative of? Is it interpretation? Is it audio, visual? Is it captioning? Is it translation? Is it working with tech companies? Is it working with, manufacturing companies? Is your niche working with other language service providers? Okay, so like you want to write on a piece of paper today, and you can send it to me on LinkedIn if you want, or on any platform that we follow each other. And you can show me what you came up with, but write down a list, as many things as you can that makes you you. So that's another homework assignment. So if you got to collect feedback, so write list in the chat if you're going to do this activity. So focus on what makes you you. And there is no right or wrong answer. I'm a project manager. I support other language service providers. I live in this region of Brazil. I've been in the industry this many days or years, right? Like write all of that out. We can then use your niche, your subject matter expertise to create opportunity for thought leadership. And this is what helps differentiate you from everybody else. You as a leader from every other leader, you as a language service provider from all the other providers, you as an association from all the others. Blogs, articles, white papers, you can collaborate with peers within your company, or maybe you can collaborate with your clients on these resources to share your insights. And then obviously this is not a webinar on social selling, but there are lots of us who can educate on social selling, right? Then it's a matter of getting that content out there, but write content for the sake of writing. And obviously ChatGPT and AI, all of that exists. I've done master classes in the last like half a year on using AI, for example. There's people all over LinkedIn talking about the benefits of it and how to use it and when to use it. But really think about your thought leadership expertise on this piece of paper that you're going to have, and what makes you you, and you leverage the AI to support these articles. One thing I love is creating events on LinkedIn and using LinkedIn Live or other platforms like LinkedIn, or like other things within LinkedIn, to collaborate, because conferences happen once a year. Loc World, ALC, Juntos, if BLISS has a conference in the future, right? Like it's typically once a year. So there's one time a year where you can try to get on stage and moderate a panel, or be on stage presenting a topic with a peer or by yourself. But you can create opportunity for your voice to be heard, like the TBO talent folk did under Charles Campbell. They created the TBO Talent Forum, and now once a month, they're bringing in guests and experts to talk about various topics. You too can create that idea and drive that momentum. Speaking at events, podcasts, webinars, conferences, this is going to allow you and your voice to be heard, and it helps to broaden, and it brings all of this back to your company. So every time that I'm speaking for BLISS right now here is benefiting my employer language network, right? And so you want to think about your sphere of influence, your circle of influence. And by doing an event like this webinar, or doing an event like a LinkedIn Live, how many people are able to reach it and you're able to access as a result? Okay, let's talk about, let's wrap here with how the heck to get started. All right, if you're still with me, I guess I didn't think about how to raffle off a book, so maybe most comments in the chat or something, and we'd have to make sure we have access to the chat after. So I don't know what that looks like, but in the book I talk about, there's 3 pillars to being a better sales leader, and if you had a chance to read it, you'll know that it actually is addressing all leaders, not just sales. There's actually like 10% of the book is about sales itself, and most of the book is about being a better leader. And the first pillar talks about asking for help, finding a mentor, right? Version 2.0 of this book is probably executive presence. So the whole first pillar is about your executive presence. The second pillar is about KPIs, these key performance indicators, how you manage your manager, how you report up, how you avoid micromanaging, right? And then the third pillar of the book is about professional development. I wrote here, find a mentor, invest in a coach, but it's like, keep learning. So we've given you a few, just showing up today is an awesome way to keep learning. And obviously they corrected me. You had the first conference last year. I love it. You're having another one in Rio, and everybody in the community has an opportunity to share. Thank you. That's amazing. Their knowledge in a webinar. So showing up to the webinars is half the battle, and you're doing amazing. But consider raising your hand to share something that you know of in a webinar like this, right? And that will help you step into your thought leadership, help you continue to evolve your personal brand. And then we talked about this too, is like identify your niche. American Sign Language or Brazilian Sign Language or machine translation or search engine optimization or video remote interpreting. Oh my goodness, does our industry have a lot of acronyms? So identify your niche, whatever that is for you, on your piece of paper, and then consider ways like I've written down here, like we've talked about, in that you can share that expertise in the world. I did a masterclass recently on how to write your first book, and I never wanted to write a book. Actually, it's not like I grew up thinking I was going to be an author. So you don't have to have this lifelong dream to decide you're going to become a best-selling author. I woke up one day and said, I need to write a book to advance my career. And this is why I am so passionate now about helping others climb the corporate ladder and get out of their own way. And authoring a book is one of the best ways to do that. When you realize the book is only 100 pages, that half of the book is filled with, like, I know you can't see it, but like worksheets. Half of the book has blank pages because, there's just not a lot of text on that page. It takes some of the pressure off. And then when you realize that this book is meant to be your first book of many, and that there's a framework for writing the book, I believe so very much in frameworks. So once you learn the framework of how to write a book, you can replicate that framework again and again and again. Once you learn the framework as a content marketer of how to write blog posts, you can leverage that framework again and again and again, right? And then you can submit that framework to an award, to a body like Stevie Awards, who gives awards, and you can say, this framework is reputable and worthy of an award, and maybe you might just win one. So if you create a framework or you follow somebody's proven framework like mine in order to write a book, that will help immensely increase its thought leadership. I'll end with this. I didn't know my now CEO, Jordan Evans, before I wrote the book. He found my book and messaged me on LinkedIn and said, let's set up a chat. So things like books or articles or speaking at conferences, they help create thought leadership, right? Things like learning how to present to executives, writing better, concise emails, negotiating internally, or asking for feedback. Those things all help our executive presence, and together executive presence and personal and thought leadership equals personal branding. So I hope that was helpful. I know we have plenty of time for questions. So over to, let's see if there's some, okay. Paulo, I'll let you guys, if you want to come on, and I see there's one question in here.
Yeah, I will read to you, but you can read it. Which would be the 5 main KPIs that a leader should use for the sales team?
That is a good question. Thank you for asking. It depends. And it depends on what you're asking, but let me answer. And if it's not what you're asking, go ahead and respond again. So to manage and measure a sales team, think about tracking calls and emails, and that can be 1 or 2 KPIs because you could track activity. And I'm hoping that you're using a CRM like HubSpot. It's free up until a certain point, or maybe you have a robust HubSpot version or another CRM. But if you do, you can track it in there. And meetings. I didn't know this because I am not afraid to admit when I don't know things. Until like 3 years ago, somebody taught me that the number one indicator for tracking and managing and measuring a sales team is meetings. So track the number of meetings that your team is having, that your team, even if it's project managers, right? Track the number of meetings they're having, because that's a really good indicator that conversations are happening, not just a bunch of activity out the door. So activity, which is calls and emails, meetings, and then obviously deals. And you'll want to track deal size, of course. I say of course, but maybe that's not obvious. And so that's 3 or 4. And sometimes, like I've done in the past, you can create additional KPIs depending on what you're trying to do as a leader or as a company, but like around LinkedIn outreach or around engaging on social media, right? Maybe it is Instagram, but it's probably LinkedIn. You could create a KPI around number of articles or blogs somebody has written in. So you can create KPIs for your team for the year or for the quarter based on what you're trying to achieve at that given time. It's hard to tell your team, go speak at a conference. My team who's here, they know, like, I can say that, but it only if the person receiving it wants to. If they don't know how, I can help teach them how, but I can't say go speak at a conference if they don't want to right now in this season of life. But typically sales metrics are meetings, activity, deals. Let me know if that answered your question.
Celia, okay. But Celia, if you want to ask another thing, just let us know and we'll open your microphone. I do have one just mix of question with comment. Like you're saying about personal branding, right? And our personal branding on social media like LinkedIn should be side by side with our company's strategy, right? Because this is what we want to resonate with our customers and everything. We want to bring results with this personal branding. So I'm trying to formulate the question, but it's like the main thing is, you think that we should work side by side, right? The content creation, cold emails, cold calls should all resonate in one direction, right? like a niche. A niche should be resonate with all the other strategies of marketing and sales, right?
Yes and no. Yeah. I love that question, because if you a lot of it depends on context. And so I'll frame this in an example, and your example, you might be smaller or bigger than this. But if you're the leader and you do have a marketing department, right, and you have a one or two people reporting to you, if you all go out and create your sphere of influence, your circle of influence over here, and the other person's over there, and your other direct reports over here, and you've got marketing over here, yes, you're all it's all for the greater good. But your niche as a leader might be one thing, and your direct report, they might call on something else versus your other direct report. So no, because content should be different. And I think you know that.
Yeah.
But also on our individual pages, you don't want to get in the habit of sharing our company LinkedIn stuff. It's unfortunate, but the algorithm on LinkedIn doesn't support like me sharing language network stuff. So let the company have a company page, let the marketing team do the marketing thing, because they can run ads, you know, depending on the budget, they can run ads to the LinkedIn page, or even as an entrepreneur, I have a LinkedIn page, right? And so that LinkedIn page hosts my events, and that works. But if I've got direct reports now, their events wouldn't be under the language network page. Their events would probably be under their individual brand page, their individual page. So
I didn't know about the.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I didn't know about the algorithm thing about the us sharing the company's content and everything. It's good to know.
Yeah, it depends on if you pay for premium on your page or not. You can see some certain a different level of stats behind the scenes. And you know, like everything, LinkedIn has like 18 versions of things you can pay for. I pay for the very cheapest for me personally, which gives me a little more insights. And I can see every time I share something, if it has 100 impressions or 10,000 impressions, right? And that's my indicator for determining time after time after time, if I share something that originates over here. But I share a lot of, you know, in preparation for this, I was tagging Bliss, right? Often I was resharing your videos, and it is important, but that's why I said no, is because every 20 posts, I should do that, or you should do that. And all 19 other posts, you should have original content going out that supports your company, but ultimately supports your initiatives.
Oh, perfect. Good to know. This is good. That's why it's good to attend these webinars. We are always learning something new. There's more questions. Let me check here.
Sorry. I guess I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, no, there is no more. Kristin, one last question. If someone would like to have this presentation, you can reach out to you so you can send it. Yeah, it's okay.
Yes, yeah. Are you going to, as the association itself will share the recording as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I'm happy. Go ahead.
The record will be available in our YouTube channel.
Oh, awesome. Great.
And then maybe people can reach you for the slide deck, right?
100%. Yeah, I can PDF it up. And
Okay,
I'm going to say, Celia, since you asked the one official question, you have won the book. Yay!
See, people, you should ask questions as well. But it's good to know. Congrats, Celia. So I don't know if Celia will going to Juntos, but I believe she will. And so I think you will be able to deliver it in person. So it will be great. So we can take pictures and everything. It would be very good to see that. Since there is no more questions, people, if you come up with some questions later, please feel free to reach out to Kristin. I'm sure that she'll be glad to answer your questions and your comments, everything. So Kristin, thank you very much. Rafael, if you want to say the final words as well.
Yeah. I just want to thank you everybody that attended the webinar. It's very important for us that we attend our events because the association is made of everybody that supports it, right? So thank you guys for attending. Also, thank you, Kristin, for accepting our invitation, for being here today to share your amazing knowledge. And I hope to see you in Lima.
You will.
We
Thank
will
you
see.
all. Thank you all so, so much.
Thank you. It
Yeah.
was
So,
a great start for our webinars. Thank you, Kristin.
a great start of the year.
All right. Well, thank you all so
Okay.
much. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Celia, congrats.